Next one is superintendent's report.
I had sent a report attached to the board agenda. We'll touch on that in a second. Just want to update the board and the community on the power outage. I think Joel Hatchie, our facilities manager from Aramark, Mike Connors, and his staff of Dave Fisher and the building administrative team, we all worked very well together. I'm very pleased with the work they did to handle the issue. When we came into the office, we were down to, we have 3 legs of power that come into the building. We were down to like 1.5 legs of power. I think I'm using the right term. But not having full power, we did not have any mechanicals for our pool filtration system, our air conditioning, ventilation system. Some of the offices were blacked out. You know, it was weird setup because you'd come in your office, the lights would turn on and your computer would turn on, but your printer wouldn't work, or you know, if something was plugged into a different outlet. So a couple legs of power were down. We made the call to close the building on July 3rd. Since we were already closed on July 4th, it turned out to be the right call. We did not get power restored until the 4th of July. At that time, Joel had some people on staff that were able to go around and start checking our units and begin the filtration process with our pool so that we could try to resume swim lessons on Thursday, which we were able to. So we were able to pull that off. I want to compliment the staff on that. Damage-wise, minimal, maybe about $2,000 or so worth. We had some circuit boards that were blown on some pieces of equipment, but that are replaceable. We lost a few printers in some classrooms. Maybe a deck or two in our TV studio, but we didn't. Right now, Tim was assessing the damage with Joel and Mike, but we didn't get anything that made us think it might be necessary to file a claim with our insurance. But that could change. But as of right now, we didn't think that. Is that correct, Tim?
Yes.
Our backup system's working. It was funny because we were having issues with that generator, and we just got that all repaired, and then about 2 weeks later we had to use it. So we were pleased with our backup system. The Soresco unit we're still working on. That's the pool unit that we've had some issues with. That is venting fine. The ventilation and the airflow is fine. It's like some days the cooling unit's working, some days it's not. So Joel's been on the phone with the Soresco rep and Soresco in Canada, and they're working on those issues. The second part of my superintendent's report is if you go to page 5 on your board book packet. I had John Passarella and his administrative assistant put together a report, and this is just to help support the discussion we had a little bit last week with some additional data. It's a spreadsheet listing the expulsions for the last 3 years with a cost analysis and summary. What I wanted to do is, it tells you if we didn't provide services or we did. There was a minimal of the ones that we did provide. But what I wanted to put, the reason I had them add the extra the column to the...
Excuse me. The report is confidential, but we're projecting it on the screen.
There's no names. We had the names removed for that. So what I wanted you to see in the last column is the Harbor Academy is the $1,200 a month per student, and Ombudsman is another alternative education. It's where students can go and for a couple hours a day and do classes online, and they have tutors available to support the students online, and then they verify when the students complete the online learning and provide us a transcript, which then in turn you can give the student a diploma or a transcript from your high school. So what I wanted to show you in the report was that even though services weren't provided, if they were provided for the length of the expulsion, the top number is Harbor, and the second one was Ombudsman. So for example, if we just use the first student on the chart, they were expelled for gross misconduct, cyberbullying, intimidation. There was 2 years. We did not offer services at RB. If we were to offer services for the length of their expulsion, the approximate cost if they went to Harbor Academy would be $21,600. If they did their 2 years through Ombudsman, it would be $12,000. So I just wanted to provide the board some of this data. I know the board's looking to discuss this over the next this meeting and the next meeting as we finalize the budget. Is this something we want to start putting some money aside for alternative education? And I'm hoping this meets what the information you were looking for in regards to data.
This is good. Dr. Skankus, is Ombudsman, is it a good value? I don't know as much about that as I do Harbor. Do we have to buy or reserve a seat much as we do at Harbor?
I think
for ombudsman, or
on
is
the,
it
on
just
the
pay as you
original
go?
cover memo, it talks about it's $650 a month per or per contract slot per student is $5,500, $6,000. So that's if you buy the contract, it's $6,000.
Yeah.
And then otherwise it's $650 a month for as long as you need students. I've had experience using both. There were times when I was at previous schools, if we had a senior that made a poor choice that maybe had 3 or 4 months till graduation, instead of expulsion, we would have let them go to ombudsman, do their credits online.
Are we
and earn their
trending toward
diploma.
ombudsman?
I just put an alternative choice there because it's half the cost of Harbor Academy. Ombudsman is not a traditional school setting.
Not for
It's
us.
you'll see a couple of them sometimes in local shopping malls, like a strip mall, where they've rented it out. They have a server, 12 or 15 computers, usually a person on staff that's has a teaching certificate, and the students log on, and they do various classes online, and then there's someone there for support.
It's intriguing. Thank you.
Where I think Harbor Academy is more a traditional alternative school where they have
Close the doors.
full support services, correct.
And that's how students who are expelled and do not return to RB graduate. They've done it through the ombudsman.
Answers one of your questions.
Yeah, I mean, neither Pam or I were here in '09. I know like there's one that says graduated at
There's a
RB.
couple of them.
I mean, I'm thinking some of these students returned after their expulsion, were able through summer school and taking classes online, you know, playing catch up, were able to get caught up with their graduation requirements and able to graduate. If you, to explain this a little easier is, in the event you had a student that you wanted to provide services to, and I think this was a little bit of what Ms. Haruska was referring to at the previous meeting, you would have the expulsion hearing, and the board, in their determination of the consequence, because only the board can expel a student, would put in writing, in lieu of expulsion, the student has the opportunity to successfully attend and complete Harbor Academy. In the event that they fail to do so, the expulsion of this period of time would then kick into place. So the way you're able to do that to get kids to graduate is whether it's ombudsman or Harbor Academy, you would do it in lieu of expulsion and alternative placement. A student technically can't receive a diploma if they're officially expelled from the high school. The only way they would be is if the expulsion was served, then they were re-enrolled, and then either provided proof of completion of course requirements, or then were able to complete the course requirements while actively enrolled.
Well, there's one from 2011. It's about the 7th one. It says services yes, return to RB no, graduation yes. Then it says NA for Harbor and Hudson.
And Pam might be able to.
Which, I'm sorry, which one?
It's about the 5th one down on 2010, 2011.
Okay, let me find where you're at. 2010, 2011, but the 5th one
1,
down.
2, 3, 4,
You did.
5. It's the 6th. It's the 5th one down.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I think
The
if you
one
looked,
that
though, I
says
think it was a
withdrew,
senior.
Letter to, is that the one or the one, I'm sorry.
The one that has NA in Harbor and
On the right.
NA.
Okay. First semester. That student graduated. I'm trying to remember. It's hard without the names here. That might have been the special education student that we
Had to provide services.
we had to provide services for.
Okay.
So that was what that
So there's
situation was.
exceptions.
So that was an exception, right? That's who that was.
Thank you.
And once again, I think my purpose of just showing you these costs is I think there were some comments that were made about the positive effects of students having a learning environment and not being expelled. And I want to confirm again that the research that was cited and the data, that is all accurate. It's just a matter of we have to determine as a board, and I need direction as your superintendent, should we have money aside for alternative education for those students, or, you know, so that's why I wanted to provide some of this stuff. Because we've made this decisions as a board, and we brought decisions before you of either not running a section for a class because it was under 20 students, or cutting a coach, or cutting a supply, or cutting an activity because it saved $8,600 or $10,000, and we have to make a decision, do we want to put those dollars into one student or a larger group of students? And that's a philosophy that the board needs to share with me. I can manage that however way.
You guys are the educators, don't you think you should make a recommendation to us, the pros and cons, so we can decide?
Well, what, I think I just did. My recommendation is do you want to spend $20,000 on alternative education, or is that something we would want to budget for and look at maybe lowering class sizes in a particular section and higher back another section? I mean, that's kind of where we're at.
Can I, but we spend approximately $12,000 or a little more per student already.
Correct.
So if this student is not here and makes an unfortunate choice because they had less resources, less mentoring, or whatever those circumstances are, and we spend $12,000 to see that that student graduates from another institution, we're still spending the same amount on that student.
No, we're not.
No.
We have
If
a
it's
fixed
marginal.
cost. Your 12,000 is a fixed cost. We're not going to get rid of 1/20th of a teacher. So think about the size of a classroom, the cost of utilities. That's still going to exist. That student is in the building or not in the building, that cost is still there. There's some incremental cost, but the majority of that cost is still shared about the pool less that one student. So now you're talking 12 plus 12.
Okay.
On that student.
All right. So, but if we look at the
Hold on a second, we can't really make an argument, it's 12 plus 12.
Well, depending on if
It's
you
not
want to
12
pay,
plus 12.
right.
if you want to pay,
Because the fixed cost is there what they're here.
If you take
Right.
one less student, it's going to be 12 plus a little.
Right,
Each student left is now
Right.
going to cost you
right,
versus 12.
but there's a hard
1,200.
cost of going and paying Harbor or
Right.
paying.
Right.
it's an
Above,
That's
incremental
it's
cost.
above and beyond cost.
It's above and
Above and
beyond
beyond.
a line item in the budget.
It's above and beyond. But if we look at these numbers, there was only 2 in 2009, and there was only 4 in 2012. 2010 and 11 was an anomaly, the year, and a 3-year spread. When we look at the statistics, I would hope that we would be given, we might save 12,000 this year, but society will pay sevenfold if this student doesn't get a diploma. And when we look at all the students who are not provided services, the majority of them don't graduate.
That's not what this says. We don't know
If they didn't-
if they graduated from somewhere else.
Well,
So
we
the
know-
question should be is, do we have a full picture here? And what percentage of these students actually graduated, and did they graduate from an alternative place? Then to get your full answer.
2 of them.
That's true. That's
11,
true. We
12
should
are
get
only
another
10th
column to
grade.
see if they.
Right. So then, will they come back?
Or will
Yeah.
they go somewhere else?
Exactly.
So that's the question. Will they go somewhere else? They come back.
You know,
83% of them did not come back.
Plus, I also think you need to look at it too, is when the student is expelled, and Pam, tell me if I'm wrong or not, you sit down with that expelled parents and say, okay, here's the alternatives that you can do.
Yeah.
Even if we don't offer Harbor or.
I do know, some students, particular circumstances, that have gone to private schools, have moved out of state with other family members, went to Lincoln's Challenge and down in Mattoon. So we give them other opportunities, or they're taking online classes through American School or some other things so they can transfer back for some of the younger students that have not yet returned, but some will be returning this fall. So
we don't shut the door on them, so you're expelled, go.
No.
We said, show you some alternatives that you can keep your education
We
going.
do, and we did have a student at Harbor this year, so we do have a spot reserved there. Just as a follow-up, Ombudsman, if you do see one that is I think it's in LaGrange there, south of Route 45 I'm not sure what road that's on. That is just for Lyons Township High School. There are some storefronts that look like they're available, but they've been, actually one school takes all the spots for those, but there are opportunities sometimes to reserve spots, I'm just telling you, but you can't just necessarily call them up and get someone in. It's like Harbor, you reserve spots and then you use it. If you reserve one spot full year, they told us, and you don't use anything first semester and you have 2 kids expelled second semester, you still only have 1 spot second semester. They're not saying because you didn't use the spot, because that spot is they're holding a computer space for the child. So there are just some practicalities, some things we can look into if you want to us to look further. But those are the challenges other schools have had with Ombudsman, with the program. It's not like when the incident happens, necessarily you're going to have a spot for all the kids there. If you haven't reserved 4 spots, they're going to turn down your child or your
Actually,
student.
didn't we reserve a spot last year too?
In Harbor, yes.
And we did that just last month, too.
Mhm.
But last year we didn't pay the money and never used the spot.
We had a student who continued.
From the prior year.
From the prior year,
Okay,
and
so
through
we-
the first.
so we
In
used this-
essence,
we
we
used this
reserved,
spot.
we're saying we budgeted for 1 per student to be placed
Right.
for next year.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
I think we as a board also have to look at the fact is that our teachers, our administrators, when they present us with an expulsion candidate, a student that would have to be, they do a lot of vetting. And Pam, tell me if I'm wrong again, you do a lot of vetting, and I know I've been involved with some student disciplinary hearings where they've come up and said, here, you could do it this way, but this is what we're recommending totally different. So you look at the student too in the situation involved to be able to make that recommendation, all right?
Right, and some of the students, they're in different situations. They are really credit deficient, or they had a discipline record that indicated maybe less likelihood that they would succeed, or they don't have enough credits they can finish. We might be talking to them about getting a GED and helping them find out about that program. We've even had counselors help arrange appointments for students and their families to go to Triton to find out about that program. So we kind of look individually at the situation. There have been times, I know in the past here at RB, we reserved 1 space at Harbor, but we had multiple students and they had openings, and they allowed us to then, send an extra student, but that's not always a guarantee if you don't reserve the space. So it varies. These are the challenges that we're facing, but we do have a LADSI purchase service that was approved, the .6 behavioral interventionist to address this. They will not only work with special needs students, but also regular education students. So hopefully, kids won't get to the point where we see their behavior escalating or they're not earning credit and moving forward in the way that we would hope, that we could get them with a behavioral interventionist who will be here on a part-time basis to help them, because we haven't had a lot of services on site here for these students. We don't have a full program here or an off-site program, so.
And have you had families, though, say to you, we don't have money to afford alternative schooling, and if you expel my child, I have nothing I can offer that child?
Yeah, there are some people that have had that situation, and what they usually have looked at is a relative that could take that student out of state, or doing a couple online credits as they could, or taking credits locally at Triton, or something that we know will transfer in later. They try and do a little bit so they're not doing nothing during that time, and they have something that can transfer back in. We've had a number of students re-enter and are doing quite well. But it is a challenge. You're identifying a challenge. For some families, it's a financial challenge. For others, they can't get. That's part of the problem. The student hasn't been engaged and committed to their education here, and so the families are: should we put the money in? If they haven't made the commitment, are they going to do it independently? If they didn't do it with the supports we had offered here, so these are definitely challenging situations.
I think one way you can address, unless you have the extreme cases to talk about, like a possible recommendation, as I talked to the board about earlier, would be making sure we're doing more for the general population so that they avoid making some of these choices, and there are services and interventions. And I think the second thing is if it's an expellable offense, we look at the expulsion, the length of the expulsion, so that maybe we remove a student for a semester and not, a time where they can't recover. I think we've taken some of that into consideration when we made our recommendations on some of these cases that we had this year that Pam and I have been together, to where we said, this is enough to where it's creating a safe environment, removing them from the environment, but the student should be able to recover, and come back to RB and still be able to graduate.
Yeah.
I mean, we can put some money to budget for that emergency case, but what I wanted you to see, like, with some of these students, it's 10, 15,000 just for one student. And if you have a year where you have 2 or 3, now we're up to 20 or 30,000. And, now you're at a price of a half a teacher.
I would just hope, though, we were very careful when we were raising the price of play to pay. And Mr. Walsh brought up that we don't only want the kids of doctors and lawyers to be able to afford these opportunities. As we sit around the board, we're all well-educated board members. Some of us are, we're privileged to have education, and some of us have means. I would hope that we'd use our position to look, if we can provide water polo and all the luxuries, I would hope that we would use our position on the board to do also good for those that don't have the opportunity to get that for themselves. They make poor choice. There are very few students we're talking about here for, but it can make a huge difference. When I went to the Illinois Association of School Boards, the plenary was by a young African-American man who was expelled from the school, and they said, "You'll never succeed." Well, he found his way, stumbled his way into community college, graduated from Yale. There's a lot of kids that the school system just kicks out, and I would hope that we wouldn't be that institution, that we would try and offer that second chance for these kids who don't have mentors, who don't say, here, you got to come to school, you got to get that education. Because we have seen too many kids fall through those cracks who, once they're found, have really risen to the top and excelled. So I would hope when we have this budget discussion that we can if we can find money for water polo, I hope we can find a little money for these kids who are struggling.
Okay, anybody else? So what does the board want to do on this? To me, I feel comfortable right now of that they are supporting kids that are in need even before they get in trouble. Am I right? The counselors are watching them and working with them,
and
right?
I would just like to make note, if you notice the dates from this year, you had asked us, John Passarola, the assistant principal for student affairs, and you asked me to meet with the kids again and have an assembly in January about the drug issues that we were seeing, which we did. And we had, I think, an effective assembly because, as you can see, it could be a fluke, or did it get through to the students? We also I did a section on with an ethical thinking curriculum, talking to them about problem solving and talking to them about what the expelled students would want to tell you if they were here today. And I think it did have an impact on students. All we can do is try to have more interventions, so we have multiple class assemblies, trying to build a positive school culture. And when you have fewer incidents of these types, you hope that kind of becomes the norm. There will be students who make bad decisions, and so I understand what Ms. Hruska is saying, definitely. And we have a spot right now for one that's open, and you hope it's not going to be more than that, but we'll continue to talk to our kids about this and reach out to families. Hopefully the behavior interventionist will be used as a way that we can also assist students before it gets to that level. And I just wanted to add those thoughts that I think your request for us to have that meeting might have had an impact. It could be a fluke, we'll see.
Anybody else want to comment on or where we want to go direction-wise on this?
I just want to comment, if you look at this as an intervention, a lot of people think, well, we'll do an intervention if someone's got a drug problem and you spend this money and guess what, it doesn't work. I mean, there's no data that we have here that spending this money at these alternative schools actually makes a difference. So I think that's important to keep in mind.
But we do see on the kids that we did an intervention, they've come back and graduated.
Well, you're arguing based on, these numbers. My point is, just because we spend the money on this doesn't mean it works.
Well, here's the problem I have with the way it's being presented. Kevin basically said it's up to the board to decide, and we turn around, and Matt turned around and said, well, you give options, but if there's no money in the budget, I don't think there's an option. So we have one slot at Harbor. It seems to me if we put another $12,000 aside, it could cover 2 ombudsmen for the whole year. And if we don't, it's different at Harbor. If we don't spend it, we don't spend it. If we have it in the budget, there's an opportunity for three, you know, I don't know how you would break out if you need it for the whole year or semester or whatever, to make the offer available if Kevin and Pam think, and John think it's the way to go. If we don't put in the budget, we would say it's not in the budget. So, I mean, I understand there's upsides and downsides. I know we don't have statistics here, but there's plenty of articles that talk about helping them. I don't think we should spend the money at the expense of the general things you need to do to, it's going to affect more kids to keep them from getting that far. But to put another $12,000 in the budget to have available for the ombudsman seems like at least it's available then.
Anybody else?
On the other side of that, if we decided to spend an additional $12,000 on kids, I don't think that would look bad on our part either. So whether it's in the budget and we don't spend
I'm sorry. Well, I'm a
or if it's not in the budget, we do spend it. I mean, that's something the board can do. I was one of those people who was asking to get the message out to these students that nothing good can come with bringing a weapon or drugs into the school. In fact, just the opposite's going to happen. And I asked for 2 years, and I think it has had an effect. And I think it has had a positive effect. And I'd like to say, if we could take that one step further, not everybody is a parent of an RB student in this community, but it is a community high school. If you see a neighbor, a high school student, you know, say, keep in school, do a great job, whatever you do, don't do something stupid like bring a knife or drugs into the school. That's not going to help your future. And if the community, you know, now that we have the administration telling us, maybe we can get the word out to the community to, you know, give a pat on the back to all our high school students and say, make the right choice, you know, keep all that stuff out of the school.
Yeah.
In a perfect world, we wouldn't have to budget for these type of things, but I would hope that when I see high school students, I tell them to do the same thing. You know, stay out of trouble. I don't want to see you on the 10 o'clock news.
I don't think we've been lavishing resources toward what's been characterized as an excess. You know, you've mentioned water polo twice. Well, we've also kept other things. But I tend to think that some of these co-curricular, extracurricular things keeps a lot of at-risk kids out of trouble. And therefore, we're probably avoiding a lot more situations where we might have idle minds creating a devil's workshop. I've been in enough expulsion hearings to have experienced a lot of consideration. We don't have zero tolerance here. Thank goodness. We consider every case of every young student who comes in here in trouble. And we've given suspensions where other schools would give expulsions. We give them every chance that we can within the confines of our policy manual. If they drop the ball continuously, we still give them an in, but we only have limited resources. But we have to consider all the kids that have stayed out of trouble and have worked really hard to stay out of trouble. We have to consider them and keep them out of trouble. I know what you're saying, Laura, and I respect it very much. But I also respect the other 1,400 kids that have stayed out of trouble and take the high road.
Okay, anybody else?
I have a technical issue before you, at the end of your superintendent's report.
Okay. All right, so what does the board want to do? Well, we can talk about it in budget if we want to add any more money to it, but.
That's fine. That's the end of my superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you.
Usually I'm an advocate for the people at home who were able to go onto our website and review the press packet. And I went to look at the Freedom of Information, as I do every meeting, to see if somebody at home can get into that Freedom of Information. I went to the Board of Education page, went to the meetings, and it's requiring a login. So if someone could figure out.
Yeah, that's just what documents get released to the public or not.
Well, we had a whole laundry list of meetings going back this far, and none of those are available to the public at this point when I try to get on my computer. I don't need it solved right now. I just want to point that out, that if people are at home trying to
Okay.
look at the press packet, how come there's a password to get in there?
That should be through board, eventually that will be to where it's through board book and there shouldn't be a password. So I will make sure that Mike and Mary Ann address that.